Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Ingrain Workshop. I'm Rick Fussell, and in today's video we're going to be doing a DIY project. Now this project was brought on by Hurricane Ian that blew through south central Florida around September of last year. When it did, it blew off probably 25% of the screens on our lanai. So the supervisor's instructed me that she wants all the screens replaced on the lanai. So that's what we're going to be doing today. So let's get started. Okay, so behind me is our patio screen enclosure or lanai. Like I had mentioned earlier, because of Hurricane Ian, we've got some missing panels. I think we've got a total of 3 missing panels, and then the rest are just damaged. I think out of all the panels, we had a total of 6 panels that I would consider good panels that we're not going to have to replace. All the other panels we're going to have to replace with new screen, and that's what we're going to do. But first we need to start out by removing the old screen and the old spline. Let me show you around the inside just to show you the missing panels that were blown out by Hurricane Ian, and then some of the damaged panels that are inside. So here's one of the roof panels that was blown out by Hurricane Ian, and then we also have a couple of wall panels that were blown out. Now, you know, we do have screen and all the other panels, and like I had mentioned, I think we've got a total of 6 panels that are considered good. And fortunately, the ones right here off the center of the pool seem to be in somewhat good condition, so those we're going to keep. But pretty much all along that wall and this wall, we'll be replacing most of the wall panels, and along the roof ends, those panels are damaged. The one right above me, you can see, is also damaged. So these panels we're just going to take and replace. The 6 good panels we'll leave in place. And all you have to do as far as replacing these screens is just replace the spline and the screen. This particular patio has a 1/4 inch flat spline, which is what we'll be using. And when we start the installation process, I'll show you how you go about installing the flat spline on the screen. So right now, we'll get started with taking out the rest of the damaged panels. So I've removed now all the screen from the patio, at least the missing and damaged screen. And let me show you what that looks like. As you can see, we've got 2 wall screens that I left up. And then there's a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 roof screens that I left in place. Unfortunately, for me, the 2 center ones, which are right over the pool, were intact and had no issues, so I didn't have to replace those. But with the pool empty, it wouldn't have been a problem just to throw up an extension ladder and get these 4 middle screens. But since there's no damage to them, I'm going to leave them in place. The next thing we're going to do is pressure wash everything now that we've got all the screens removed. But I'm going to be very careful when I pressure wash on these existing screens that are left in place, just to make sure I don't blow through them. I'm going to back off when I pressure wash those areas and just do it real easy. But then in the rest of the areas, I'm going to go ahead and do a full pressure wash and probably a degreaser or a cleaner on there as well. Get that all cleaned up before we install the new screens. So we're going to be pressure washing next. Now I'm done with the pressure washing. I've pressure washed the inside of the lanai and the outside, making sure that I pressure washed, at least on the exterior, that I made sure that I got into the groove where the flat spline for the screen is going to go, just to make sure that it's all cleaned out and ready to go. So the first panel that I'm going to install is right here by the door. It's a 3 foot by 6 foot rectangular panel. The reason why I chose this one first, it's because it's on flat ground and I can video it for you guys a lot easier than I can trying to put it up in the ceiling or along the walls. I will videotape all of that as I'm installing it. I did want to go into detail on how to install one panel because then after that it's simply rinse and repeat. It doesn't matter if it's a wall panel or a roof panel. So let me show you how I'm going to install the first wall panel. The first thing you're going to need to do is to determine what size spline you need. For my instance, I needed a 5/16 inch flat spline, which I ordered off of Amazon. I'll leave a link in the product video description below. You'll also need a roller. This is for rolling the screen into the groove, and then for also rolling the spline into the groove. And then you'll also need these little clips. Let me zoom in and see if I can, if you can see that. So this clip clips into the channel where the spline's going to go. So it's going to allow me to basically install the screen with no spline, with just these clips, be able to pull it tight, get any wrinkles out of it. And then I can go back and install the flat spline. And as I'm installing the flat spline, I can take out these clips and then reuse these clips on the next panel. I think they came in a packet of maybe 15 clips, which is probably more than I'll need. And then again, you just reuse these clips on the next panel that you go to install. And I'll also leave a link in the video description where you can pick up the spline tool along with the clips. So when installing the spline or the screen first, you're going to want to take and install it from top to bottom, and then either left to right or right to left. But I'm going to start out just installing it top to bottom. Okay, so it was that easy. I went ahead and went around the perimeter. I put 3 clips on the top, 3 clips on the bottom, and then 3 clips on the left and right sides. Now the screen is tight. It doesn't have any wrinkles or grooves in it. So now I'm ready to just go ahead and put in the spline. Let me show you the spline. Now the spline that I'm using, I think I'd mentioned earlier, is a 5/16 flat spline. So on a flat spline, you'll have the back, which is totally flat, and then the front of the spline is concave. Let me see if it'll zoom in and allow you to kind of see that. So the flat side is what you want to go in first, with the concave side facing out. If you look at the groove where your spline goes, there's a little channel inside the groove, and that's what you want to start the spline in first. You want to start it in the channel and then roll it on the back so it will squeeze it into the groove on the aluminum. So let me show you that real quick. So as you can see here, I've swapped out the red roller tool that I was using previously and went with this wooden handle roller. The reason why I did that is because the width of the roller is actually thinner on this roller than it was on the previous red handle roller that you're going to see me using here. And the reason why is the red handled roller was too wide to fit in the channel. So I was able to get the spline in, but not all the way, because the roller would just run flush against the channel. With the thinner roller tool, I was able to actually get the roller inside the channel, and that definitely installed the spline correctly and installed it inside the actual spline channel. So just make a note of that when you're purchasing a roller, to make sure that you're not purchasing one that's too wide for your channel, and make sure that you get the right width roller. I didn't realize that they came in different sizes, but apparently they do. So just make sure that the roller you get is properly sized for your channel, or is smaller than your channel. You definitely don't want a roller that's wider than your channel. Okay, so that's it. I've got the spline and the screen installed. Everything's cut and trimmed except for the screen itself. I just trimmed up the spline as I was putting it in. The last thing I'm going to do now is go trim up the screen. I'm going to use just a flat razor, brand new, because you know, for a project like this, go ahead and use a sharp razor blade. Don't pull out anything dull, because you don't want to damage the screen you just installed. This will make for a nice cleaner cut. You probably could use scissors, but I just would recommend using a straight razor. But let me show you how I did so far. So this is the spline going up the side of the panel, and then of course across the top, the left side, and then back down around the bottom. And you can see I've probably got about maybe 3 inches, 2 inches of extra screen to trim up, and that's all around the perimeter. So again, I'm just going to use a straight razor, go down and trim it up as close as I can with the gap. So I'm just going to run the razor right along the edge here where the spline is, the back of the spline, and just trim it up so it gives it a nice clean look from the outside. So just take your time when you're cutting around the screen, because the last thing you want to do is damage the new screen that you just installed. So just take your time and make a nice clean cut. And that's it. This first panel is complete. The spline's installed, the screen's installed, the splines and screen are all trimmed. One panel down. I think I've got, you know, maybe 16, 20 to go. So now it's just a matter of rinsing and repeat for the walls and the roofs. The ceiling is going to be the same way. Same concept, same installation process. You're just going to be up on a ladder. So let me go ahead and start knocking out the rest of these panels. Okay, so I'm back here in the workshop, and I just wanted to show you what I did before I installed the screen. When I did my quantity takeoff, so I'd know how much spline and how much screen to use, I just took a little sketch pad and just sketched out every panel and the size of every panel for the different walls and the ceiling that I needed for the lanai. And I only have, because one wall is the wall up against the house, which has no screens. So basically I just have a south wall, a north wall, and an east wall. And then I have each panel and each panel size drawn down, so I know what size to cut. I also use this to do my quantity takeoff for, like I had mentioned earlier, with the screen and the amount of spline that I was going to need. So now I'm back here in the workshop, and I just wanted to show you a quick way, call it a pro tip of how to cut the screen to make it a lot easier to cut. Okay, so what I've done is I've got a control joint cut into my workshop slab, and you can probably see it. It runs down the slab here, and I just took a tape and just hooked it onto the control joint and stretched it out 10 feet. That's the longest panel length that I have. And then I've got my roll of screen right here. So what I do is I take the edge of the screen here and go to the foot on the tape that I need to cut it, and then I unroll it back here to the control joint, and then I just take a straight razor and cut the length. So these rolls that I ordered are 72-inch or 6-foot rolls, because most of my panels were I would need at least 6 feet to make it work. So let me go ahead and roll one out and just show you how easy it is to cut it here on the floor. So I'm going to place my screen at 7 feet because this particular panel is 7 by 6. And I'm just going to unroll the screen to the control joint. And then once I get to the control joint, I know I've got 7 feet of screen now rolled out. And then I can just take my straight razor and cut it down the control joint. And it's that easy. That way you've got a nice straight cut. You know that you've got now a 7-foot by 6-foot screen panel. And then I can take this and go over to the lanai and put this up in the proper panel position that's located on my drawing. And then I'll probably have, the way I estimated it is to have about 6 inches of overlap all the way around. So I don't have to be perfect with it. And then I can trim it up once I get it installed. And this seems to be the easiest way for me to cut it. You just want to make sure that your floor is clean. You don't have any metal or any nails or anything laying in your floor. Just make sure you sweep it before you do this. But this is a quick way to go ahead and cut the size panels that you need. Okay, so I wanted to give you a close-up of the spline channel that's in the actual aluminum on the patio to give you an idea of how the spline's actually going inside the channel. So this here is the actual channel in the aluminum, and it measures 5/16 of an inch. My spline is 0.285 of an inch, and you can see the end of it here. The bottom here is flat, and then the top has a concave section on it. So the flat goes inside the groove first, and then the concave sits on the outside. So what you do is the clips fit right inside the channel, the spline channel, and I've got the screen clamped in. So before I remove the clamp and start installing the spline, I'm going to use my roller here, and like I mentioned before, the rollers are different. This roller here, as you can see on the end of it, is just a flat roller. That's going to go inside the channel and basically insert the screen inside the channel and groove the screen. And then I'm going to use this concave section of this wheel to actually grab the back of the spline on the right hand side of the channel, which is the outside of the channel. It doesn't have to be the right, it's going to be the outside of the channel, because on the inside of the channel, there's a little groove here. And the groove is where the spline starts. So you wedge it in on the groove side, and then you come on the back side of the spline and squish it into the groove. So the first thing we're going to do is just take the spline or the screen and flatten it into the channel. Now I'm going to remove the clip. I'm going to flip my roller around, so now I've got the concave in. And again, I'm starting on the back side of the channel. I'm just going to squeeze it in, and it's going to install the spline right into the channel. Now, once you get the spline in the channel, then you can come back and just trim up the excess screen that's left behind. And then you've got a nice clean edge. And as you can see, the spline wedges in the channel, and that's what holds the screen in place all the way up. Well, that's going to wrap up this project. I hope this video helps you out in your project, and if it did, then please leave it a thumbs up. I'm going to leave a link in the video description below to all the tools and equipment that we used on this project. I'm also going to leave a link in the video description below to our Etsy store. That's where we sell our post office box door banks that we make here at the Ingrain Workshop. If you've never checked one out, check it out. I think we've got probably 50 out there. That's not our entire inventory, but that's what we have on Etsy right now. I'm also going to leave a link to our 2 Airbnb cabins up in the Smoky Mountains. So if you're interested in taking a vacation with your family to the Smoky Mountains, you can check those out. Now, I would consider this an easy DIY project. There's not that much upfront cost other than the cost of the material, which was 2 rolls of screen in my case, and some spline, flat spline, and then a roller. So the tools used to do this type of project are minimal, and the cost is minimal. I believe with the tool, the roller tool for the spline itself, and the screen, I was in for about $250. And again, I'll leave a link in the video description below to all those materials on Amazon, so you can pick some up if you're looking to do this project. I got a quote right after Hurricane Ian to replace all the screen on the porch, and the quote I got was $1,500. This project took me approximately 3 days. So if you subtract $250 from $1,500, that leaves you $1,250 divided by 3 days, divided by 8 hours a day. It ended up paying myself $50 an hour to install the screen. Now that's a pretty good deal. I'll work for $50 an hour any day. So like I said, this is definitely any type of DIYer, any beginner, intermediate, expert. This is something that's very easy to do, and it's going to save you a lot of money if you decide to do it yourself. And you're not only able to just screen lanais or patios, but you can also screen your windows. So if you've got holes in your window screens, you can repair those as well. You just need to buy a different size spline to fit your window frame. We really appreciate the support we're getting from everyone. If you do enjoy these type of videos, then please hit that subscribe button and make sure you ring that notification bell so you'll be notified of all our upcoming videos. This really helps support the channel, and without you guys, we couldn't do this. So we'll continue doing projects. Stay tuned for next week's project, which might have something else to do with our patio area. Just wait and check it out. Again, this is Rick with the Ingrain Workshop. We'll see you next time, and have a great day.